Good evening, you're watching AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. Amid shifting global trade dynamics, Malaysia will continue addressing issues multilaterally through ASEAN and other platforms, while also engaging directly with the US. Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz says Malaysia and Singapore, as key trading nations, play a crucial role in the global supply chain, with the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone strategically positioned to support key industries.
We understand that each country in ASEAN will have its own challenges, which will have its own concerns. So we will approach this both at the multilateral platforms through ASEAN and other platforms that are available, that we are members of. And at the same time, bilaterally, we also continue to engage the US. I think it's important for countries like Malaysia and in Singapore, which is very much involved in the critical part of the global supply chain, and after all, we are an open economy. We are a very trading nation as well. So again, this is where JS-SEZ is important, because we are in a geographical location where that supply chain that is supporting many industries go past through this area, and I think it's important that we continue to highlight this to all our partners, including the United States, of how Malaysia, Singapore, JS-SEZ, ASEAN, all can play an important role in supporting the global supply chain, and it is actually and will benefit the world, and definitely will benefit the United States as well.
He said this during his keynote address at the inaugural JS-SEZ Joint Business and Investment Forum in Persada Johor, Johor Bahru today. Zafrul and Second Finance Minister Datuk Seri Amir Hamzah Azizan will head for Washington DC tonight and are scheduled to meet the US trade representative and other stakeholders on April 2nd to discuss the United States reciprocal tariffs.
Meanwhile, Maybank Group President and CEO Datuk Hairus Saleh Ramli agrees that the JS-SEZ presents strong potential to boost trade and investment in the region. He highlights its role in strengthening intra-ASEAN trade amid a challenging global tariff landscape.
We believe this Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone is a long-term thing. And given that we believe in the formula of this, it's a win-win situation. We believe that there's a huge opportunity to focus on, say, intra-ASEAN trade, right? And intra-ASEAN trade is only about 23% now of total trade by ASEAN countries. So that alone, it's got a lot of prospects. Yes, there is this volatility, challenges, uncertainties that we're seeing arising from the reciprocal tariff that's been imposed by US. But when we talk to people, people talk to me, I said, no one knows what's the outcome, but we need to be able to then look at what we can control, perhaps. What we can control, perhaps, is about intra-ASEAN trade, and maybe pivoting towards, more other bilateral trades, beyond what we have now, to make sure that, we can have a sustainable pool of trade and investment that we can attract in JS-SEZ.
China warns it will retaliate against countries that cooperate with the US in ways that hurt Beijing's interests. This comes after reports that Washington plans to pressure governments to restrict trade with China in exchange for exemptions to its reciprocal tariffs. In a statement, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce said it would take reciprocal countermeasures against any party that reached a deal with the US at the expense of Beijing. It added that China was willing to work with all parties to defend international justice, while accusing the US of bullying and abusing tariffs. The Trump administration has kicked off talks with trading partners over tariffs. A Japanese delegation visited Washington last week, and South Korea is set to begin negotiations later this week. Trump has paused major tariff hikes on other countries for 90 days earlier this month, while further raising duties on goods from China to 145%. While analysts do not predict the US and China to strike a deal anytime soon, Trump has said he expects an agreement to be reached within the next month. The president also claimed that more than 70 countries have reached out for discussions since his tariffs were announced. A second Boeing jet intended for use by a Chinese airline was heading back to the US on Monday, according to a flight tracking data. This appeared to be another victim of the tit-for-tat bilateral tariffs launched by US President Donald Trump in his global trade offensive.
The 737 MAX 8 landed in the U.S. territory of Guam on last Monday, after leaving Boeing's Zhoushan Completion Center near Shanghai, according to the data from flight tracking website AirNav Radar. On Sunday, a 737 MAX painted with China's Xiamen Airlines livery was returned to Seattle Boeing Field. A spokesperson for Xiamen Airlines confirmed that 2 planes marked for the carrier had gone to the U.S. but declined to provide a reason. It is not clear which party made the decision for the 2 aircrafts to return to the U.S. Trump this month raised baseline tariffs on Chinese imports to 145%. In retaliation, China has imposed a 125% tariff on U.S. goods. Tariffs could cripple Chinese airlines, with each 737 MAX worth around $55 million, according to IBA, an aviation consultancy. The return of Boeing's 737 MAX jets signals growing disruption to aircraft deliveries as tariffs end the industry's long duty-free status. Boeing, still recovering from a 5-year import freeze, now faces further delays as airlines consider deferring deliveries to avoid high duties, analysts said.
We'll go for a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Dah cuba elak panas terik, tapi kulit kepala masih gatal dan berminyak? Mungkin ia kelemomo. Gunalah Head & Shoulders. Berkesan menghapuskan kelemomo sehingga 100% bebas kelemomo. Head & Shoulders. Demi memenuhi semua impian, kita capai dengan setiap langkah. Teruskan hari demi hari. Kami setia di sisi. Nescafe, hidupkan duniamu.
Kerap menggaru kulit kepala disebabkan kelomomor, masalahnya lebih mendalam. Gunalah Head & Shoulders menembusi 5 lapisan untuk membasmi kelomomor dan kegatalan. Bebas kelomomor sehingga 100%. Head & Shoulders diuji secara dermatologi.
Daulat Tuanku.
Welcome back. Pope Francis, the first Latin American leader of the Roman Catholic Church, has died at the age of 88. His death comes as a shock to all, coming just a day before he appeared in St. Peter's Square to wish Happy Easter to thousands of worshippers. It was also his first appearance after being discharged on March 23rd, following a 38-day hospital stay for pneumonia. Reacting to the news, world leaders praised his efforts to reform the Catholic Church, offering condolences to the 1.4 billion Catholics worldwide. Jorge Mario Bergoglio was elected Pope on March 13, 2013, surprising many who saw him as an outsider. His passing prompts a period of mourning, after which sets in motion the centuries-old process of electing a new Pope. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shared information about U.S. airstrikes on Yemen in a second private group on the Signal app. The New York Times reports that the group chat included his journalist wife, brother, and even his personal lawyer.
The messages that were sent on March 15th involved flight schedules for American fighter jets carrying out strikes on Houthi targets. The developments come a month after The Atlantic magazine revealed that its editor-in-chief was added into a Signal chat discussing sensitive information on U.S. military operations. The White House has denied that classified information was discussed in the group chat. Washington said its strikes in Yemen were punishment for Houthi attacks on cargo vessels transiting through the Red Sea, a waterway for international trade. Airstrikes on an oil terminal in northwestern Yemen this week killed at least 74 people and injured 171 others, according to the Houthi-run health ministry.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has arrived in Delhi, India, where he is expected to hold talks on tariffs with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Discussions are likely to focus on fast-tracking a bilateral trade deal between the two countries.
India has already slashed tariffs on some U.S. goods, with further cuts expected. The country faces a tariff rate of 26% if it is unable to agree a trade deal with U.S. President Donald Trump's administration. Vance's visit coincides with several other countries who are attempting to negotiate trade deals with the U.S. before the 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs end on July 9th. India's foreign ministry said Washington and Delhi would also exchange views on regional and global developments of mutual interest. Until recently, the US was India's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade reaching $190 billion. Modi had been among the first leaders to meet with Trump after his inauguration, with the two leaders setting an ambitious target to double bilateral trade to $500 billion.
Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba says Tokyo has no plan to terminate a trade deal struck with the US in 2019. However, he will continue voicing concerns over inconsistency between the deal and US President Donald Trump's latest automobile tariffs.
In 2019, the US and Japan signed a trade deal cutting tariffs on US farm goods and Japan's machine tools, as well as other products, while easing fears of higher US car duties. Although the agreement did not cover automobile trade, then Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said he had received assurances from Trump that the US would not impose Section 232 national security tariffs on Japanese car imports. According to Abe, Trump had confirmed to him that no further additional tariffs will be imposed after the deal was signed. However, Japan was not exempt and now faces Trump's 25% tariff on auto exports. Japan's top trade negotiator, Ryosei Akazawa, visited Washington last week to kick off bilateral trade talks with the US, which will likely include discussions on non-tariff barriers and the topic of exchange rates. Finance Minister Katsunobu Kato plans to visit Washington later this week, where he is expected to meet US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent for discussion on currency rates. Most of Trump's tariffs are paused until July. However, a 10% base rate and a 25% auto duty remain in place.
South Korea's acting president, Han Duck-soo, hopes that the upcoming trade talks with the United States this week in Washington to be the start of meaningful cooperation. However, he added that negotiations may not be easy.
South Korea's Ministers of Finance and Industry are meeting U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and USTR Representative Jamieson Greer later this week on April 24th. Han said Seoul will seek a mutually beneficial deal with the U.S., focusing on trade, shipbuilding, and liquefied natural gas while prioritizing national interest. However, Trump has previously indicated that defense cost sharing may also be on the table. Kim Hyun-chong, a foreign policy advisor to the country's presidential frontrunner Lee Jae-myung, warned the interim government against rushing U.S. talks or making major concessions, saying it risks national interest. In fact, he asserted that no deal is better than a bad one. Kim served as South Korea's trade minister in 2018 when the country renegotiated a free trade deal with the United States during Trump's first term.
That wraps up AWANI tonight. Check out our web portal, keeping you informed on the critical events shaping our world, all in one place at international.astroawani.com. That's all for now. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching and good night.